Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Shri and Peter. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys. I'm one of the aforementioned CPG Guys, your co-host, Peter V.S. Bond. I am also the Vice President of Retail Strategy at Power Reviews. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host. He is the Snoopy to my Woodstock. He's the Fred to my Barney. He is the hamburger to my French fries. He's so famous that he only goes by one name. That's how we know him. Please join me, everyone, in welcoming my co-host, Shri. Shri, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Peter. Always a pleasure to do this with you, and welcome to our guest as well, who we'll introduce in a minute. And
I'm sorry, were you talking about? Yes, we hope baseball comes back. Maybe the Yankees can win a game once in a while. But in any event,
27-6.
Did you say Dodgers?
27-6.
Okay.
27-6. The journey continues.
There you go.
And I haven't even been introduced yet, and I'm drawn into.
Well, I'm going to get to you in a second.
Oh, okay.
Before I do, I want to remind all our guests that if you want to reach any of our content, simply go to cpgguys.com. We're in the process of publishing a list of our favorite podcasts. It certainly includes us, and it also includes our guest coming up. Now, I've known her for about 5 years. I met her when I was at CVS, and she was doing strategic consulting. She is the founder and CEO of WSL Strategic Retail Consulting. And she also is the host of Future Shop, a great podcast about shopper engagement that you can get on the Apple Podcast Pod Store. You can get it on probably numerous platforms. But please, everybody, join me in welcoming our guest today, Wendy Liebmann. Wendy, how are you?
I am well, thank you for asking, Peter, although you've now irritated me in your, anti-Yankee comments. So on a Friday after, it's...
Pro-Dodger.
Oh, they're another Brooklyn, they're a New York team, so we have two teams. We have three teams, you're just trying.
Well, when you're 6-27, it comes from the labor of the jealousy of love. It's all right.
Is that what it is? Okay, whatever.
Funny how at the beginning of when the Yankees had a better record, that was your focus this year, Shri. But now that they're getting their butts kicked by people like the Rays, you're okay.
You're so right. The Yankees have a better record at 27-6. You're good at this stuff.
Wendy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and how you help brands and retailers get closer to consumer connections?
Sure. So thank you for having me, seriously. So our focus is all totally about the shopper, and it is how do you as a brand or a retailer anticipate where the shopper's going. So that's an interesting, viewpoint in a world where we're always looking at what they did, how much they bought, where they bought it, as opposed to what does that mean for the future. And in these times, that seems quite perilous. But we've been doing our own research called How America Shops for many a year, where we really have built a whole platform and series of metrics where we help anticipate where the change is emerging. So we are just knee-deep in shopper across their universe, what we call their shopping life, how they live their life, the impact of everything from economics, social, political, technological, baseball, all of those things, on how they make decisions to buy, where, and what's just changing the way they're thinking about life. So this is a very interesting time for us. And Peter, as you noted, we do that we advise, retailers, manufacturers, cross-channel, cross-categories, because we're looking at the whole shopper life. So there's in a nutshell, not quite the elevator speech, but
the sports metaphor that comes to mind for me is Wayne Gretzky, because you're looking to go where the shopper is going, not necessarily where the shopper is right now.
That's right.
That is very valuable to brands and retailers.
Yes, thank you.
And so I'm going to throw this out. I'm going to start with Wendy, and Shri will jump in, and I will too. But let's start with the first topic, which is obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, and shopping habits have been severely disrupted. Is that irreparable? And if so, which habits are changed forever versus can actually return in some way to where they were. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, Wendy, like which ones have been irreparably changed?
Well, I'm going to say this to be a little contrary. Why not? Is that I think so many of the habits that we now see as new were actually already in the works. And I think what's happened with the pandemic is that it's just forced them into reality. And that's everything from the, people increasing their shopping online, the focus on wellness, health and wellness, the whole focus around who do I trust, who don't I trust, the focus on too many stores, how many stores, has the apocalypse arrived? So many of those things were actually already in place. And people were very loath, whether manufacturers or retailers, really loath to sort of, excuse the expression, bite the bullet and move forward on some of these things. The discussion around omnichannel, you want to stab yourself, right? I mean, we're all so committed to that, but this conversation has been going on for so long. And how many stores do we need? So I would say this to you. I think it looks like it's been a disruption, and yes, it has in many ways. But so many of those things were in place already. So to varying degrees, we see the increase in shopping online for first-time shoppers, whether it's groceries or health or beauty. Will they all stay all the time? No, we know they won't. We already see that in their attitudinal approach to the future. But there are a lot of them that will, and it already fit their lifestyle. Don't want to spend all that time, got other things on my list, want to spend more time with friends and family, not very exciting experience in stores. So, it just forced people into a new or into a mode that they were already in. And so I think that's the big message on that one.
That leads me to the obvious next follow-up question, which is, having worked for very large brands and very large ecosystems, due to the economic construct of our brand P&Ls, which is largely because most of us tend to be from warehouse brand backgrounds, although Peter and I have touched DST, everything is measured in brand P&Ls. And these are age-old blueprints which have survived the test of time and decades, and due to which we conscientiously resisted e-commerce and omnichannel, and large retailers are very comfortable with that ecosystem. As a result, small brands that were incubating found D2C as a viable channel to get started, kind of build that one-on-one relationship with the consumer, et cetera, et cetera. And in 2020, though, it feels almost 80-90% of the growth of many categories is happening with these small brands. So if you're a large brand, do you have a choice these days to be anything but omnichannel? And is this a rude wake-up call moment? And are you really hunkering down and transforming?
Yeah, I think I absolutely think that there is no choice. I mean, as our lens, I'm very biased. It's all through the shopper. And if I think about the way people have been living their lives, they have been engaging in multiple channels, digital and physical, for, I don't know, pick a number, 10 years?
Yeah.
Really deeply. Look at Amazon in the last 20, right? But in this last 10 years. So it's the big companies that felt they had the luxury, I think, of big media budgets, traditional media budgets, the power of gigantic brands to say, no, we don't have to go there yet, So, and left it be. But the shopper was way ahead of them. And so the smaller companies that took advantage of that, I think that's where we saw all that growth for small brands. But I will say this, in the conversations we've been having with large retailers and large CPG companies over the last few months, they got it finally, the urgency to move forward. And now they're really trying to figure out the P&L.
P&L, we talk about that all the time.
It always comes back to that.
That in the equation. They can't think about it in terms of the old way that this is a must-have, and it's going to turn their P&L upside down with capital investments in the short run. But it's got to be done, because if you're not there, someone else is, and they're going to take your shoppers from you. Wendy, you said something earlier that really piqued my curiosity, which is extending those habits of health and wellness and what have you. Two things. I think the brands are there. I think they do a good job of helping shoppers know, at least on their sites and how they communicate, how their products help consumers, shoppers follow particular lifestyles or health and wellness lifestyles they want. But I'm not sure that the retailers are quite there yet in terms of search capabilities. It's different when you don't have the physical product in your hands and you have to do it on the digital shelf. It seems to me that a lot of retailers aren't taking advantage of their ability to tag and filter to help those shoppers. The other one is there's this, I know this from my time at dunnhumby, that one of the first thing that goes when you're in an economic downturn and you have a restricted budget, your willingness to compromise the health and wellness lifestyle in order to meet and live within those budgetary restrictions, that can be really challenging. So I think the brands that figure that out and can help people live that lifestyle but not feel like they're shopping at Whole Foods whenever they buy a product, that might be something that they're...
I think that's really important, Peter. And we've seen that through COVID. We've been, isn't it stunning? We talk about the virus, COVID. We have this whole new vernacular in a period of 6 months, right? But through the crisis, through the pandemic, we've watched people and try to understand on lots of levels how they feel about health and wellness, the attitudes they were bringing into this. So what we've looked and tracked for really quite some time, 5-6 years, going from that sort of sick care to well care, right? Not even self-care, sick care to well care. And how those have been sustained, at least emotionally. How are people still talking about those things? And we see all through the 6 months, and as we now move into this next phase, that people are feeling, I won't say everybody, but a significant amount of the population, really in the 50-60%, are still of those who are engaged in this sort of lifestyle of wellness, are saying still this is what they want to be part of, and they expect to have it, but not to be priced out of it, if you will. So I think your point is a really powerful point, that where we might have made trade-offs, we shoppers, in a different time, that movement, that's what I mean about things that were already growing so much, that movement was so strong. And now we've got this health crisis where people are even more engaged in having to take care of their own health, that people aren't going to give up on that. They're just going to find ways to do it that are more affordable. And the retailers and brands that enable them to do that will win at this moment. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to just kind of talk about how retailers have been responding to this, particularly the move to e-commerce. It seems like, I think we all know from the numbers that Instacart has somewhere between a 50 and 60 market share of grocery e-commerce activity. And I've seen gravitation. I understand why the small guys have gone there, right? They don't have the capital. This afforded them an e-commerce strategy to compete with Amazon. So they jumped on it and they had a lot of shoppers on the platform. And to a degree, I also understand why the big guys have done it, because everybody's on the platform and they don't want to be not an option on there. So even though Kroger's got its own platform, it's still going to be part of that. These super regionals like Wegmans and HEB and Meijer, they've kind of not gone in that direction. They're charting their own course with consumers. Any thoughts on kind of how this is all shaking out right now? I know it's really turbulent.
Yeah, and I mean, you two are much more the experts in the whole conversation about the financial aspects and the profitability of that. What I would say to you, if I think about a Wegmans, again, shopper-centric view, right? If I think about a Wegmans or an HEB or a Meijer or, and even as a shopper, I go to their site, right, to look and think about, now I'm going to order whatever. There is a very intimate, clear brand perspective about what I'm getting there. And my sense of it, just again, from a pure shopper point of view, is that those brands, that retailer as brand, it feels to me like what they're really trying to do is control that experience and sustain that intimate relationship with the shopper, as opposed to this sort of massive thing called Instacart, where people get in your way. And listen, I was onto Instacart very early in the city, as you may have been, Sri, but that notion of it's a big national something that gets in the way and feels rather antithetical to what is that special experience with a Wegmans or an HEB or whatever. So again, it's a very shopper-centric view. And I'm sure there's a lot more going on in the smart people of, in Rochester and, Grand Rapids and other places. But it's just that emotional delivery that makes it feel that they're holding on to that unique relationship with their shoppers. What do you think about that? Why do you think they're doing it?
I think that it is very much about controlling the experience. So Wegmans is almost a cultural icon in upstate New York. Their private label isn't like
and in Brooklyn, excuse the expression if you don't.
Or
mind.
In Brooklyn, yeah.
Those pictures.
While they don't have private label penetration like Trader Joe's or Aldi, it's still 50% higher than a traditional grocery store. Mm-hmm. There are wholesale categories that they've done that. So I think they want to control that, to your point, that connection to the brand, and you lose that to a degree when you're in a homogeneous environment.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on, and I think the consumers appreciate that.
And you raised the point before about competitiveness. And I think in spite of the fact that it doesn't feel literally like they've got a lot of competition, well, that sounds like New York and fire engines, they are very conscious, in talking to them, that all of those retailers we just mentioned, that there is a consciousness of, we still have to be careful about, who's in the neighborhood, who's coming to the neighborhood. And then, of course, I can just do Amazon, right? Yeah. So there's still a great consciousness about that. So it's not as if they're so isolated and, whether they're in, Rochester or, in Princeton as a Wegmans, they've still got all of that around them. So I think it's that sustaining the relationship with the customer, the shopper, that feels very powerful to me.
Yeah. So we've talked, and we've just mentioned Amazon, we've talked HEB, we've talked Meijer, we've said the omnichannel shift has been happening for quite some while, and this is a rude awakening for brands and for retailers that there is no other way go forward. So I'm going to ask you the price question of the day that we often debate on this podcast.
All the time.
And we use a very metaphoric word here, but with store closures, I don't think there's a single day that goes by where I don't see a very large chain that I've personally shopped at some point in history in this great country announcing bankruptcy or a massive store closing or a furlough or a layoff, or I would really say closing its business forever. So is the store, I'm very careful not to say retail apocalypse because I don't believe in it myself, but is the store apocalypse, is this the beginning of the end? What are you guys seeing with the data and insights you look at?
Yeah, no, we're absolutely seeing that, how America shops work for some considerable time. We've seen that sort of, the two things that really strike me. One is how people have either expanded the portfolio of places they shop. So we would call that always already. Anywhere I am, I need this, I'll just run in. And it seemed also antithetical to people's busy lives, right? I mean, we had that conversation with one very large retailer who always talked about busy families. And we said to them, yes, but they're shopping so many, it's not all about all under one roof anymore. They're willing to go all under one roof on the, whatever. It's just one of many. And they were like, no, that doesn't work. We know they want to have all under one roof. And we said, sometimes. They'll make a trip here, So we had already begun to see this fragmentation of the retail landscape. And once we started to see that, you said, well, what does that mean to the trip? What does that mean to the weekly trip? What does that mean to the special occasion trip? What does that mean when people have so many places to shop? And then all of a sudden, how many of these one-size-fits-all store formats do I need? to address that need from a shopper perspective. So that was the first piece. The other piece was, so we've been looking at that now as that's evolved over, again, is it 5 years, maybe longer. And then, of course, the whole notion of the nature of the trip in the store. Am I literally going to walk every aisle? Am I going to order online, pick up at the curb? All that fragmentation. So not just how many places I shop, but how I shop. And so as we've been looking at all of that in our data, the big insight it has been that you just it wasn't that anybody wasn't shopping at your place. It's just they're not shopping there as often or in the same way. It's not that people don't shop department stores. Yeah, they will, but not as often, not for everything they used to, not with as big a, ticket, all of those things. And so we shifted from retail being a real estate play. What was the solution to great retail? Location, location, location.
Yep.
Well, toss that out the window, right? And so the long answer to what your question, Sri, is, again, this is not new news. It's just now we've seen this retailers being forced to confront this as people said, no, I'm not going there today. No, I'm not going there that same way. And, guess what? I've just learned to shop online and it'll show up in 2 hours or 4 hours or a day or 2 days or whatever. So that's the big shift.
And so, Peter, I'm gonna skip to the perfect segue question and then hand it back to Peter, because I know what's brewing in his mind, what the next question that's brewing in his mind, and I'm sure it has to do with Amazon.
Clearly.
Amazon. So I'm sure Amazon's coming, but the perfect segue that I've been thinking about for quite some time now is I would always publicly on stage speak about the fact that we were one NACDS away from buyers and the EVPs of merches and the SVPs of merches asking the EVPs and the presidents of brands, why should I take your innovation profile in store if you can't bring me data? Mm-hmm. And what the little guys and gals were doing as brands was they were bringing data because they were D2C and they had the own supply chain inside out, and they were tracking end-to-end 360 views of the consumer, their habits, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. I don't have to tell an insights person what that means. So are we at that stage where that one, of course, this year there was no NACDS, but I'm sure we're going to have a virtual, if nothing else, a virtual 2021 NACDS is on the way. Is this the year retailers, leadership asks brands, bring me data before you bring your innovation pipeline? Because guess what? The 5 little guys and gals have showed up with it, and we're taking a facing away from you, especially as real estate is shrinking. And associated with that, has the moment for D2C arrived?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes. And how has this not happened before, right? Because the good companies, right, the really good companies.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Preach.
Thank you. Preach. I mean, it's just like, sometimes I think, it's all very well to say, didn't we? I feel like mother, did we not tell you this? What is the matter with you people? It is one of the issues of a country where we have such scale, right? Such scale that we can get away with a lot of rubbish when it comes to understanding the consumer as shopper, as patient, however we want to describe them. How we ever come into a business-to-business meeting and say, here's the latest new fabulousness, and we love it, and it's just great, and, you loved us last time, so you'll love us this time, and we need that many facings on the shelf. How anybody has put up with that. And, I think, why? Sorry, you're both laughing.
No.
It's because the money that was put
because we love it. We're laughing because we wholeheartedly love it. Yeah. And you are the first guest to actually agree with us on the show that really? This is reality.
It's unbelievable. Somebody said to me yesterday, somebody who just left a very big retailer, said to me, I cannot believe that a retailer of this size still doesn't demand insights around the shopper when they look to make a decision, a purchasing decision. And it's, if you knew the retail, knew the category, your head would explode. But anyway, so that's that one. I think that that's a no-brainer. I mean, it has to change. I don't think it will. I don't think it will fast. I think there are still companies that will drag their feet, exactly. But I do think that the urgency for it now, because you're absolutely right, the retailers are now saying, how much choice do we need? How much do we, that whole conversation, how many SKUs do we need on the shelf when where people are ordering online? We'll put more on, I feel I'm preaching to the converted. So I think there's definitely that. And I think the whole DTC conversation, again, purely biased shopper lens, right? Sometimes I get more information when I go directly to the brand. They tell me more, particularly if it's a complicated thing or I want to be immersive. So great. Oh, and why do I have to make another click? Now I have to say, and now go to the retailer's website. So the DTC proposition is so supportive of how shoppers think. I have no time. I don't care. I love this category. I want more. And then I just want to click, so it's the Instagram moment. It's all of those places where I read something and I want it now. And that urgency has become greater because there's a lot of stuff I don't want now and it's off the list. But there are some things that I'm really willing to spend time and money on, health and wellness for one. And how do I do that? So that's my tirade.
I think to your point, I think there's a real balance that brands and retailers face on what is the right amount of information on a product page or on a listing page that's going to drive the conversion. Like you can overwhelm them. Your goal is to get them what they need to make that decision and move to their next transaction rather than having them sit there and linger and have to keep asking and digging because they can't find what they want. So I think there's and I'd say one other thing about that. Yeah. We tend to think of the online shopping experience as very transactional. And I think that's true because of the way it's been defined. I mean, it's interesting talking about the regional grocers again. If you talk about Wegmans and you look at their website, it's not a pitch for Wegmans, but if you look at their website, it's actually not very transactional. I mean, it says at the top, how do you want to buy it? Order online, pick up at store, come in, blah, 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 get you there. But then very quickly, it's into recipes, it's into life, it's into all of those things that say, you know me, and you're trying to help me solve problems. So I think that even as we move more and more into this sort of omni world, that issue of even at an Amazon, I get all the algorithms, but where's the experience when I want it, right? Shri already hit it up front.
We started this. Peter, we started this whole dialogue with visual appeal. Visual appeal plus user experience equal to consumer captivation equal to catching a sale.
That's right. So,
absolutely. You opened up the door to me, Wendy. You mentioned Amazon.
God, no.
So let's talk about what's in the news. Amazon opened its first Amazon Fresh store in Los Angeles. While it's not entirely there, they are positioning it as a cashierless experience or a near cashierless experience.
Yeah.
There are two sides to this equation. One, are consumers ready for that? And two, if they are, what is it that Amazon was able to learn from the consumer that led them to say this is the direction that they should be going?
So I don't know what's in the mind of those Amazonians. I will tell you that I did have a conversation out there on behalf of a client presenting a shopper view in a category last January. That feels like a century ago. And I was trying to convince them that the analytics are really important, but the experience is another piece to it. So anyway, that's talking about trying to, whatever that expression is, something about convince somebody of something. Anyway, the thing that struck me about Amazon and their cashierless experience is really Amazon Go.
Yeah.
And when I first saw the Amazon Go, when they opened their first store in Seattle, whenever that was now, and even around Manhattan now, right? There are a number of the stores in Manhattan. The thing that works in that is small offer. It's very clearly defined about what I want in a hurry, what I want to get in and out with. It's a game, right? I feel like I'm robbing the store, but here I go. Oh, wow, it works. And I think there was a learning in that, the efficiency of it. It wasn't just about, there were so many nuances to that. It was about the localization of the mix, bestsellers as well, surprises, brands that are in there, you go like, wow, that's interesting. There is help. I mean, in terms of creating an experience, in the store in Seattle now, I don't know if you've been to it lately, but the one not far from them, there's their wine department, and they have this local kind of Seattle wines now. And there's somebody there to chat to you. If you want to chat, that's not their job, but they will chat about what they're doing. But that experience, as that's morphed, made me think a lot that this is so easy, so seamless. So that small format, essentials, convenience, feels like it really works. The bigger grocery experience, we're learning how to do that right now. On the one hand, we have a pandemic, which has said to us, don't touch anything, just don't talk, just grab and go. So I think that sets it up really well. And also look at what other big retailers have been doing now to force that. Look at what you go into Walmart now and it's all about, self-checkout. So I do think from a shopper standpoint, there are moments when I just want to do it, leave me alone, let me get the basket full, get out of there, little shop, big shop. And I think that makes me step back and say for Amazon, okay, we get that. Now where do you layer on that personal experience, that emotional experience? And is it the person who's helping you get through the gate or making sure there's not an issue? But I do think a lot of factors have come together to push that. Plus younger shoppers who just want to do it all. Thank you, Venmo, Zelle, whatever, Apple Pay. Just let me get on with it. Why do I need to do anything else? What stuns me is it's taken so long, right? As I think, to things we've discussed about. Look at Asia. Look at Europe. I mean, we give our credit card away and somebody takes it off in a restaurant. We wish now, right? And pays, where in Europe they at least bring the thing, to you when you just...
Right to you, sure.
Exactly.
North of the border in Canada too.
We are a very strange retail country. We love it, but we're very strange.
So I'm going to ask you a two-part kind of question.
Okay.
And just listening to our conversation, change is imminent. It's already happened. For those who are letting it pass by, good luck. We know bringing insights and data to fill your innovation pipeline, get it in with the retailer is non-negotiable, go forward. We know DTC's got some life, it's breathing some life. We know user experience is going to be optimal. If you add all of these, what happens to private label brands in a go-forward world? And what happens to the economically friendly dollar stores, given we are still in the middle of a pandemic and we have been economically challenged as a nation?
Whew, that's one big multifaceted.
Unpack it.
I'm trying to unpack it. I feel like I need to go back before I go forward. I've already forgotten the first part of the question. So now I'm at the dollar store.
Private label.
Private label. Thank you. Sorry. My question to you really is how do you define private label, right? So, the role of sort of the generic, no name, whatever is sort of, I feel, long gone. We now live in the world of whether it's Kirkland or those kinds of brands, which are brands. And I think in that world, those brands still have a tremendous relevance if the retailer has a relevance. So I think both as a sort of sub-brand within the retailer's environment, they remain very important, for differentiation. That whole point about all the places a shopper will go now, what does differentiation look like? And part of it is the unique brands I have, whether they're my own exclusives, whether they're exclusive manufacturer, whether they're my own brands. I think they continue to be really important, but they need to be delivered in really innovative ways. They cannot be, the knockoffs, just the cheaper version of something else. I think they have to be treated like brands. And I think, that's just a point of view that I've had for a long time. Whether it's, I'm trying to think about insights that would support that. The insights we have are that half the time people don't know they're exclusive to one retailer. They don't know that Kirkland is, they sort of do, but it's only available at Costco. But that level of differentiation. So I don't think they've gone away both as a value proposition, but they can't only be a value proposition. They need to be a brand proposition at an affordable price. So I think that's one piece, if I answer that piece. I think the dollar stores, the small formats, the Aldis, I think, maybe they don't literally come together, but certainly as we come through the pandemic, as the economic impact, not that it hasn't hit us, but as that continues to weigh down on shoppers, the dollar stores and the Aldis and even Lidls of this world fill a really important need. It's not just about price, it's about convenience, it's about access. I think the challenges for the dollar stores are more about, do they have enough of what I want?
Yeah.
And are they delivering it in a way that I feel is relevant? And by that, I mean, I do give credit. Dollar General, early in the pandemic, moved things like OTCs, even though it's a limited, say, upfront, even though it's a small, they said, so those kinds of things are increasingly important if we want to stay, if those retailers want to stay relevant. But I do think the Aldis of this world are the other ones. I mean, talk about stealth-like, there they are and doing such a good job during the pandemic in terms of building trust and, all the things they're doing, organics, fresh, all of those things that I think make them incredibly powerful. So small formats, value-oriented small formats, I think, play a huge role moving through the pandemic and the recession, depression, and getting us out the other side.
I think what you said about both the format and private label being a genuine brand proposition, I can't think of a better example than Trader Joe's, right?
Yes.
They've done it. They've done it very well. You also touched on authenticity and trust. The research I've seen says that the single biggest driver of conversion from national brand to private label is positive customer reviews. Surprising. I talk about this all the time.
Right.
But I've proved this with some of our retailers. The retailers that are focused on just simply collecting feedback from their consumers and sharing that with their consumers, that, the price, to your point, is kind of built into the equation. Everyone expects when they buy private label, they're going to pay less. But if you can assure that your consumers, that other people who've bought it say this is really high quality product, that's going to be very successful for them. And to your point on small format, I think you mentioned convenience and access. To me, that's proximity, right? One of the great things about the value stores is they've got tens of thousands of locations, more so than even the drug retailers. So they're pretty much close to where most people are in this country.
Yeah.
And if they adopt, to your point, change the way and make it easier to shop, not only in store, but buy online, pick up in store, call it what you will. A lot of things there are that this could be the moment for value to really accelerate.
Yeah. And I think the other piece about that is, so often we forget that, we talk about the country and we forget about half the population, household income's under $50,000, even though there was some improvement over the last few years before the pandemic. There are still, the vast majority of people in this country, or I shouldn't say that's not a majority of people in this country struggle every day to find affordable food, health, every option. And yes, Walmart fills some of that, but Walmart mostly. But the issue there is, and we've seen this in all our How America Shops research, is that the lower income shopper finds Walmart too tempting. Because I could overspend at Walmart, right? I could really overspend. You walk down the aisle and then you see something, or the kids see something or whatever. Not that we're walking down the aisle that much anymore. But those issues, so that the dollar store becomes, okay, I can spend my $12 or $15. I'm not going to blow the budget that I don't have. And so I think there's that other aspect of it as a, at least from a value, a price standpoint or a wallet standpoint, the sort of safe option to all of that. The other thing I just wanted to say, sorry, I'm having a conversation with myself here, is
this is a big conversation for all of us.
It is.
This is what we wanted this to be.
Yeah.
We find that our best episodes are when we're having a conversation.
Oh, good. Good. Well, the other thing about national brands and private brands, one of the things that I found really interesting, again, during the pandemic, is to your point about how do you build trust with private brand or exclusive brands, and yes, let the shopper speak for them. Yes, they let me tell my friends and you'll tell your friends and all of that. But one of the things that we've seen here is this move back to national brands in categories where private brand had really, like the healthcare categories, if you look at OTC and things, and personal care, and it's about sort of trust at this moment in time. Mm-hmm. So that's a very interesting thing that we're keeping a very close eye on in our new work, because is that something that people said, who do I trust at this time? And are there national brands that I trust because I've known them for a very long time and I think they'll keep me secure? Is it because those brands actually were in stock? Sometimes, not always, but during this. So accessibility. But there's stuff going on there that we're doing.
It's almost comfort, isn't it, Wendy?
Yes, it is.
It's why Sri and I always have Twinkies in our basket, because in tough times, it just brings us back to that feeling of of happiness and simplicity.
And joy, where do we get our little moments of joy? It's not necessarily a national brand toothpaste, but it could be, I suppose, if you love having great white teeth. But there are those. I think sometimes we forget. Again, it's a shopper view too, and when we think about the human aspects of our relationship, both with retailers and the people who work in those stores or online, and the brands we buy, and those moments, particularly in times that are so fractured and fractious, and whether it's whatever's your Twinkie might be I have to think about that. I'm not sure what that is in my life, but I know there's
everyone's
something.
got their comfort go-to, right? That's
right. But it's something that we're going to keep taking a very close look at, because we've seen this sort of move. And the question is, because to your point, Sri, about smaller brands, emerging brands, new brands that people are working on, growing, and our credibility that, yeah, sure, they're good. I'll try those. Why not? I'm a smart shopper. I'll check the reviews. I'll, see what's going on. Has this move back to national brands in certain categories? Will that stick? And what are the dynamics of all that? So we're doing a pretty big piece of work towards the end of the year that will look at categories, brands, private brand, channels, if there are such things anymore, all of those dynamics together.
Well, I know, Wendy, we'd love to have you back when you are announcing that, to share details. I'll ask you one last question, because we've touched on it in a number of different areas we've discussed. We talked about it with the Amazon Fresh store. We talked about our behavior when we're going into physical stores. And it's this whole concept of contactless payment. It's very prevalent in Japan. It's more prevalent in Europe, though not quite as much as Japan. But are we there yet? Is Amazon Fresh telling us that it's there? Are there other signals? And if we aren't there, is it because is it the consumer, or is the retailer not enabled the ability for this to happen, or is it both? I'm just kind of curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think it was both until now, because what we're seeing now, again, we've seen it in our latest, sorry, not to be pitching all our latest studies. Please, everybody, hurry up and come.
We want you to.
Oh, please come. Order. Go www.wslstrategicretail.com. Go for your life. Knock yourself out. Order everything. But we've seen this move to people saying, for safety and security, so pandemic effect, I want things contactless, including payment methods. And that was a very small number, moving into the pandemic. And now, as it's become now a safety issue and a security issue, that number is growing. And it's not just young shoppers who, want it all on their phone and scan and go. So there's another aspect that's going to elevate that really, really quickly now. And now it's on the retailer's part to deliver that, because otherwise, as we know, you don't do it, somebody else will, Amazon or anybody else. and I'm going somewhere else because I can't do it. I just even tell you one little experience. I went and got my very naturally gorgeous red hair colored the other day, and you thought it was natural. And even the tipping now, it's like, could you tip on Venmo, please? Could you pay? All of that, because nobody wants to be playing with money. That's the whole banking thing, right? Why did I go to the bank and take cash out? I'm not sure why, but I did. It's old habits. So I think now this urgency is changing the way people think about it, and now it's up to the companies to make it available.
Wendy, I literally have not had a single dollar in my pocket, and I just calculated today, for 3.5 weeks. I have not, everything I've done is contactless, or I've had no cash, nothing.
Yeah. The only, I was thinking about when you just said that, what do I need cash for, right? Paying.
Yeah, exactly.
I could tell you, but I probably shouldn't, but I know I could tell you, who do I pay by cash? And the garage guys I tip with cash, the whatever, I still tip the hairdressers with cash. I got to get over that, right?
Yeah.
But it's just an experience that once I have a quick alternative, I don't need it.
I'm just amazed that it took a pandemic to make the QR code fashionable.
Shall I wave my finger and be mother at that one too? Oh my heavens! Right.
I'm going to tell you, and as we close this out, I'm going to tell you an interesting story of QR codes. I wasn't a big fan, having come from large brands, especially on packaging. When Peter and I started debating QR codes way up in March and April, I have learned this from Peter. They're actually going to be on our Zen Fuel boxes.
It's if you've got the real estate, my attitude is it's an opportunity for you to ask for feedback or tell consumers that they can learn more, because if they're walking into a physical store, there's not going to be any information on the shelf. Right. Not enough space.
Right. But I will say this, that's the other issue, right? You would go into a store, you would scan the QR code. Either the store didn't have Wi-Fi, the QR code didn't work, whatever it was. And people said, oh, what is this? Why do I bother?
I need a reader. I need a separate app.
Yeah. All of these things. So I think they're all the things that are going to be forced into, as people build out their P&Ls, what does this look like now, and how do we pull it all apart and put it all back together again?
Well, I want to remind all our listeners, if you want to find all of our content, be it our podcasts, the videos, we're going to publish a list of our favorite podcasts in our space. One of them is going to be Wendy's podcast. I'll talk about that in a second. But if you want to see any of this content, just go to cpgguys.com. And if you really love us, and we hope you do, could you give us a star rating on Apple Podcasts? Just go to tinyurl.com/Apple CPG podcast. It really helps us when you do that. Wendy, tell us a little bit about your podcast and where people can find that.
Sure. The podcast is called Future Shop. We are much, we don't do them as often as you guys do, or I don't do them as much as you guys do. It really is a diverse group of people, from people you would know, like Walmart customer experience people, to this current one is a neurologist, a leading neurologist, talking about how do we deal with stress and how do we deliver that in a shopping environment, those issues. So it's quite diverse. Like you, it's people I want to talk to and that I'm curious about. I was dragged into it by my wonderful team who said, stop writing newsletters. We got the blog, we've got WhatsApp, go on, do a podcast and talk to your friends. I said, okay. So there you go.
We're going to put a link to it in our show notes in the podcast. We'll also put it on our list of preferred podcasts for our listeners to listen to. And where can people find out more about your consultancy?
They can find that out in a very long website, which is www.wslstrategicretail.com. And there is a wealth of free content. We have a great blog. We have a thing called What's Up, which is what's on our mind every week. Lots of free content. So come on over and bring your money with you.
Wendy, Sri and I are very grateful to have you join us. We can't wait to have you come back when you're debuting one of your big research reports. We'd love to break that to our audience.
Okay.
But thank you, Sri. As always, I'm very grateful to have you on this journey with me. We have a lot of fun. We barb each other, but hopefully we educate our audience. So thanks again for joining us today.
That's the plan. I can't thank you enough, Peter, for doing this with me. And Wendy, it was a pleasure to have you. I feel we barely skimmed the surface we haven't even talked about the path to purchase and how it's changed. We just skimmed the surface of digital IQ and shopper habits and things of that nature. So I hope when the report is released, you will indeed come back and we can indeed take a much deeper dive into shopping habits and how they're transforming. And Peter, as always, thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you again. And we look forward to our next episode of the CPG Guys. Have a great day. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.